Welcome back, everybody, to another Cedar Flags. We are back in the Plaza area behind the hotel, or I guess rather next to the hotel, back by the pool, and we actually had a bit of a change of plans. I originally anticipated building a lot more back here than what we are actually going to end up with over here. So if you watched the last episode, you know that I came up with the idea and kind of fell in love with the idea of putting a lazy river back here. And that is exactly what we will be building in this episode. Yeah, if you don't know what a lazy river is, it is like a pool almost, except it's shaped like a bit of a river and it just blows the water around. So you basically just sit in there with a raft and you get to be lazy as the water takes you around and around as long as you want. So it's pretty awesome. If you've never been in one, I highly recommend finding one and floating around for a while. But yes, this is a bit of a challenge for this game because there's really nothing like this there's really no pieces in this game that'll really help with this. So as you can probably tell, this was a bit of a process. So we have a concrete pillar design, and we're actually using these pieces as the outer walls for the lazy river. And yeah, it was a bit of a tedious process. This is one of those builds that I booted up the game. I actually did a lot of this on stream. So I started up my stream and I sat there and I was like, oh man, how are we gonna pull this one off? And in the end, it actually works out really well. But just working through this, it was pretty rough. And if you watched that stream, you absolutely know how much I was doubting this the entire time we were building it. But yeah, we figured it out, and actually toward the end, we come up with a few really good ways of doing this. So if you're actually interested in building something like this is going to be a good episode to get some tips from, because yeah, as you can tell, it's very handcrafted, and there are a few little build tips and tricks that I figured out halfway through here. And honestly, if I had another shot at it, I think the next lazy river would be even better than this one. But that's not to say that this one's bad at all. So yeah, we're just going through here, sketching this out. And I guess I will talk a little bit about why I decided to scrap some of the ideas that we had before. So I love the lazy river idea. Someone had suggested, and I know a lot of people wanted to see some of the water slides back here. I really didn't want to put together a water slide. That's a lot of just parts and pieces back here, and in the end it's not gonna look as good. Like from a distance you'll see a water slide and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's a water slide. But I think the lazy river accomplishes a lot more like just looking at it from a distance. So I think at a glance you're like, oh cool, that's a lazy river, I know what that is. It's right by the pool. It's a really good touch for a hotel. So I think the water slides, like at a glance you might be like, oh, that's part of the park. And then you go over to it and you're like, oh, this is just a big piece of art really in this game because they don't have any function. So I didn't really want to do the water slide back here. And then I had originally intended on putting some sort of bar or restaurant back here. I had actually tried to stream a build of that. Like I booted up the stream, we were gonna build that, and I think I had like a thunderstorm rolling in and my power went out. So I actually didn't even get to save any of that work. So we scrapped that altogether, and the reason I scrapped that was because I really didn't want to put a lot of time into building the rest of this area. And this is one of those builds that it looks great from a distance, and we don't need to do a lot of super intricate detailing work for it. So I just figured it'd be a much better build project for this area, just because, again, this wasn't going to be a part of the park per se. This was always going to be a background building. That's why we talked a lot about that as we were building the actual hotel. So there's not a lot of huge detailing going on around here. So the lazy river just fit really well, and I felt like adding like a bar or restaurant back here would be a little overkill for what it is, so we are scrapping that altogether. At the end of this time lapse, we'll be going through and putting a little bit of some detail work around the pool just to fill it out a little bit. But I wanted to keep this build back here as a background build, and I wanted to keep that in mind as I went through it. So this is why we only have a lazy river and a pool. A lot of people actually had really good suggestions back here too. Like somebody was saying that we should put like a kiddie pool in here. That's something you would probably see in a resort hotel. Obviously, if this were like an actual resort hotel, there'd be a lot more to this plaza than what we end up with over here. But just for the sake of this game and to move this series on, I think this was a good little concession to make. But yeah, this, I guess I could talk a little bit about why this episode took so long. I've been going through some things in my personal life, nothing too big. I'm actually in the middle of basically a career change. So I've had a lot of stuff to do over the past week or two. This footage has been done for quite a while now. I just haven't gotten to editing it and getting the actual video done. So there were a couple reasons, and as I've always tried to reiterate, this is still just a hobby for me. I am not making nearly as much money as I'd need to make YouTube into a full career, unfortunately. Like, as much as I'd love to do that for you guys and have these videos go out every week, every day, have like daily content, it's just not feasible for me. And yeah, I mean, it's weird. These videos take forever to make. Let's be honest. These videos take, I think I've had probably close to 4 hours of building for this video. And then on top of that, we then have to go in and render it. So my computer is tied up doing all of the pre-rendering and composition work for probably another couple hours. And then I have to go in and actually edit these videos and then do the voiceover work and then get into the live stuff and then edit the final thing together. It takes forever to make these videos. If you guys want to see like a regular Let's Play, let me know. I'd be very curious about that. If you guys wouldn't really be interested in that, that's fine. I might try to do something sometime soon. Planet Zoo is actually coming out fairly soon here, and I think we might do a bit of a hybrid series. We're not going to do so much heavy detailing. Well, that's not true. We're probably going to do a lot of detail work in Planet Zoo, but I think I'm going to do more of a hybrid Let's Play because I'm hoping the management side of that game actually lets us do something like that. So that should be fairly cool. But yeah, these videos take forever, and I don't want to make like too many excuses for this, but that's just, you'll notice gaps in my style or in my video, and I guess that's kind of just my style at this point. It's probably what I'm known for, unfortunately. But as I've been rambling on here, let's go and talk about what we're doing right here. This is actually very important. This is one of those tricks and tips that I came up with along the way here, and we're actually, you'll see us pull a couple of these column pieces up every now and then, tilt them 90 degrees, and then use that as an alignment to figure out where the end pieces go. Now, this accomplishes a couple things. It's much more geometric. So you see that curve that we actually just made was very, very symmetrical. So that's a really nice curve, and it wasn't all just eyeballed up. The second thing and most important thing that this does is it allows us to then keep the same width of the lazy river all the way through. So this is one of those things that I was very, very uninspired as I was building this. It was one of those things that was going to be a major pain point for me as I was building this. The entire time I was doing the outside wall, I'm like, oh man, doing the inside of this and making it look good is going to be so tough. And it is tough, but using this technique, we get proper spacing all the way through. We actually get to see where the curve needs to be, and it just makes everything so much better. And because everything is fairly symmetrical, you can then copy pieces of that outside wall or the inside wall or whatever wall you're working on and actually just reuse it. So because it's all the same curve all the way around, you're basically just taking that same piece that you've just done instead of having to put the entire thing back together piece by piece. So yeah, I guess as I was talking about trying to conserve pieces back here, we then go ahead and make a massively piece-intensive lazy river, but I think it's one of those builds that it warranted it back here, and I think it looks really good. And honestly, I don't think I've ever seen anyone do a lazy river in this game. That being said, I don't watch a lot of people on YouTube play this game, especially not anymore. So yeah, anyway, we're just going through and finishing this up, and we're gonna have a lot of work to do past just the layout for this. We have a lot of space to fill in, and that was one of the things that I were just really, really, it was intimidating, let's say. the spaces inside the lazy river are very, very tight. And obviously, if you've played this game, you'll know that the terrain tool is not a feasible way to fill all this in, especially if we're working with water. So the water in this game, you actually need a very large bumper at the edge of the lake before you can, go in and do any more editing. So there had to be a very large amount of terrain that we would have had to do to fill the insides of this in with terrain. So that was just not going to work. And it's just a lot of openness too. So art pieces were an obvious go-to, but I thought since this was so far in the background of our park, it's not something that we needed to go crazy over. So we'll end up just going through and doing a lot of bushes and rocks in there. And if you've been to my live streams over on Twitch, you'll know how much the chat loves rocks. We actually have an emote for it. If you subscribe over there, you get the emote. And yeah, it was one of those things that a lot of people had to almost talk me off the ledge on this one. Throughout this build, I had a bunch of people in the chat being like, it's not going to be that bad. You'll work through it. We believe in you. And I was like, all right. So that was encouraging, but it was just such a intimidating build all the way through. And a lot of people in the chat were actually giving me great ideas on how to do it. I had a lot of people actually putting in some reference photos into my Discord. All of that, by the way, is linked in the description of every one of my videos. If you want to hop into the discussion over on Discord, you can. The link is down below. But yeah, a lot of people were throwing up their suggestions as to how this lazy river should look. A lot of great insight from you guys, so I'm very grateful for that. But I will say that this lazy river, once it's done, is very unique, let's say. I think generally speaking, the lazy rivers that I've always seen are in a very tropical area. It just looks really right if you put like palm trees around a lazy river. And for that reason, it's a little weird back here for us because we are not working with a tropical climate. We do not have any palm trees around. We're not really going to fake it and put palm trees in because I felt like that'd be really out of character for our park. So we opted to do like an alpine designed lazy river back here. So most of the trees that we're going to be putting in later on here are definitely different for this area. So it's kind of interesting. I guess you'll see that as we go through, but for now, all we're doing is trying to just go ahead and get this all tediously tied up. A tongue twister there for you. But just a little bit of track left to do, if you want to call it track. And we're going to hop right into the surrounding areas and fill in all that gap work. And yeah, it's really cool that we actually have water that you see in this lazy river. So the pools in this game are really cool when you get actual water. For a long time, I think we weren't able to do that, or I really don't know. I saw a lot of people using art blocks for pools and stuff, but we've now been able to do that, or maybe we always have, I'm not honestly sure, but we go ahead and put some of those blue roofs down under the water to make it look a little bit more like a pool, and it looks great from a distance. That water kind of shimmers like water's supposed to, and it looks good. But you're seeing right now we're actually going through and we're doing some of what I was talking about with the shrubbery, and we're trying to create just a way to cover up all of the gaps underneath all of this. So I've actually, in the reference photos that I had, a lot of them were either completely concrete over it, so that's kind of boring. We could have tried to do that with some art pieces. I feel like that would have been a lot of just trying to get things to clip and not clip through each other. I didn't think that was a good resolution to that. A lot of them actually have, I think, just lawn. I saw a few with like lawn over the middle, which was really weird because I was like, how are you going to cut that without getting grass all over the lazy river? I feel like that'd be a bad idea, but we've opted here to just do some shrubbery. Our scaevola, I honestly don't know if I'm even saying that correctly, but we've used this all over the place. It's a great ground cover, and it actually obscures a lot of the views. So at a glance, like I said, you're gonna not see anything. It's gonna look like the lazy river is what it's supposed to be. It's not just a massive pool that's blocked off at all. But when you're up close, it's a little bit tougher. Like, you can definitely see through some of the spaces down to the bottom. And that's one of those things that usually throughout this series, I'd probably try to cover everything up, try to not see any blue poking through all of that ground cover. But since it's all the way back here, I just had to keep telling myself it's just a background feature for the hotel. We don't really need to go super crazy. I tried to refrain from covering all of it up, but for the most part, I think we get most of it done here. But yeah, there are little spots here and there. But yeah, so the layout itself is now done. We've got all of this surrounded by some greenery. And I think the last thing we have to do here is make this make sense in the context of this plaza. So obviously, it's a little strange having some really weird ground cover right up to the paths. It just doesn't look like it should fit there. So eventually here, we're going to be going through and making a little bit of a barrier. And yeah, I think this lazy river is really reminiscent of Alpine River Rush out in our River Rapids rides out in the park. Just a lot of the decoration around this lazy river really reminded me of that as I was building through this, and it's kind of cool. Like I said, it's very unique. We have a bunch of like alpine trees around it. It's not tropical whatsoever. It actually looks like it would probably freeze in the winters, which I guess would probably not be recommended for a lazy river. I honestly don't know how they work. I think it's just jets of water that are thrown through the water to create a current. If that made any sense, I don't think it did. But I feel like a lot of those internal structures would freeze in a winter. But then again, I don't know. I'm not a lazy river expert. If you are a lazy river expert, let me know if it's good for a colder climate. And I'm saying that not expecting anybody to be a lazy river expert, but I've said things like that before, and out of the woodwork, you guys are just like happen to be like something that I'm talking about, and you're like, hey, yeah, this is exactly what would happen. I was like, oh, that's cool. But no, a little bit of a water feature going in there, little sprinklers. I originally was going to do some sort of maybe lighting structure on that little 90-degree, or I guess it'd be a 180-degree turn. Again, didn't like this at all. Eventually, we're gonna want to do some sort of lighting. We might do that as like a send-off, maybe, for Cedar Flags. We might do like just a lighting live stream here on YouTube and maybe have some fun with that. But yeah, we ended up with those water features over there. At first, I was like, maybe we don't want that. If you're in a lazy river, you don't really want to be splashed with water, maybe. But then I'm like, wait a minute, you're getting into essentially a pool. So if you're getting in there, you got to be expecting it. So that was kind of my mentality back there. But you're seeing right now, we're sketching out a little bit of this outer boundary of the planter bed, if you want to call it that. So we've gotten the same, I think they're just wooden pillars. We were surrounding this plaza before in the last episode with these, and we're using that. We've actually doubled them up. We've taken the iron girders and made them into some sort of little support. And I want to say this is kind of like a break wall almost. I don't even know. It looks almost like a break wall. It looks pretty cool. And the cool thing about this design is that we have that one side that's angled, and that angle actually helps us hide a lot of the ground cover. So we can clip into to the base of these little breaker walls, if you want to call them those. And it actually hides fairly well instead of having to get like really, really intricate with how we placed all this ground cover down. So it was a really interesting design. I actually like these a lot, and I think we might use them moving forward here or there. But yeah, I guess we should talk a little bit about moving forward after this episode. We'll probably do it more in the live portion of this video as well. But another reason that I didn't want to do a lot of building back here is I really want to get back into the park. We still have to do the Copper Forge POV video. I think that was the name of that coaster. Honestly, it's been so long since I've even been back into the park to do anything that I've completely forgotten plans and everything. So we still have to do the POV video for that ride. We have to do a little bit more building around that ride. I want to do another flat ride before we do the POV cinematics for that thing. I still have to make a logo for that as well, which is another big project that is just something that I'm not necessarily looking forward to, but I guess if anybody is like a designer out there and wants to actually make a logo for that ride, let me know and just put it in my Discord. There's a channel in there for Cedar Flags. put something in there. Let me see it. It'd be great. It'd be awesome if you made that for me. But like I said, there's a lot more to do. I really wanted to get back into the park, and that's really why I didn't want to keep building back here in the hotel. I think the hotel looks great just as it is now after this is done. We have a lot of stuff going on back here, and it's gonna be awesome, and I can't wait to get back into the park, and I can't wait to start like seeing this, just like peeking over some scenery, like, oh yeah, the resort's back there. It just feels much more like an actual theme park or an amusement park, and it just feels awesome as like, from a company standpoint, I guess, having that back there is just another avenue for revenue for us. I don't necessarily know if people or guests are actually going to use the hotel portion of this park. I don't know. We'll turn it on. Again, I don't necessarily play the game in anything but pause. So yeah, it's kind of it's one of those things. I don't really go through and manage this park at all. And again, I'm really hoping that Planet Zoo has much better management than this game did. I'm looking forward to playing that game, and I haven't really watched too much about it. So I'm kind of in like just an open mindset when I go in and play that game, but I don't really necessarily want to talk too much about it. I'm hoping that we can do something a little bit less of a project, I guess. I really don't want to bite off as big of a project as Cedar Flags has been. I think I've talked about that a lot, so I don't necessarily think we need to talk about it too much right now. But I guess what you're seeing right now is we're just finishing up this plaza. We've got it pretty much finished in terms of the layout here. The lazy river is now done, and we're trying to put some sort of fencing back here. Now, I think technically, from like a legal standpoint, we'd have to have some sort of taller fencing around our pool just to keep people out if it's closed. Back here, what you're seeing is actually just a more visual fence. It's not much of a privacy fence, but this is by design. You'll notice it's over a ledge, so I figured maybe people won't be able to climb up to it. But I wanted to give the folks an opportunity to look out over that beautiful lake that we have and into the park, even if they're back here. So that was my mentality about doing that fence there. But we're just tidying up here around the pool now. And I downloaded a couple things here. Now, I haven't really done this too much, and I didn't necessarily want to do it a lot throughout this series. I really wanted to build a lot of things custom, but for this particular build, I've actually downloaded a Lifeguard Chair and a cabana. So I didn't necessarily think it was a blueprint. I thought it was going to be more of just one big prop. So I actually delete a lot of the things inside the cabana, as you saw there. But just keeping that tent structure, I think, was okay. I didn't necessarily really want to go ahead and have to build that myself. So we kind of cheated there a little bit. And then the prop that we have for the sun chair is just a really awesome chair. And then the Lifeguard Chair was really cool too, but it was one of those things, I just kind of got a little bit lazy, I guess I'll admit, and I didn't necessarily want to build a full Lifeguard Chair, so we actually just downloaded one. I figured it would be okay since it's back here. I don't necessarily want to do any of that in the main park, so I figured we'd probably be okay with this, but if not, I guess let me know with a thumbs down of this video. But no, all we're doing here now is actually just finishing up the railings around here. You saw a couple little props that we got through the Lifeguard Chair, which was actually kind of cool. We got a couple of these little life floaty rings. Honestly, I don't know what these are called. If you know, let me know. They're the little rings that you could throw out to somebody if they're in trouble, and a couple little things here and there, and that should just about do it for this time lapse. The only thing left to do, I think, is some of the scenery work around some of the foliage, but let's go ahead and hop over to the live portion and check out everything we just did. All right, guys, we are live back here in Cedar Flags, and we are looking at the beautiful Hotel Plaza outside the hotel for our guests. We are ready and primed to make their stay a little more enjoyable. So, yes, I guess I kind of glanced over this, but I did want to put a little bit of a barrier in here because we'd want to differentiate between the deep end of the pool and the shallow end, so we did do that. It doesn't look great, because the rope, I think, is kind of, it's a little weird for us. But then again, we're at a weird styled hotel, so I guess it's fine. But just outside of the pool, we have plenty of seating for presumably the adults who'd want to just sit there and watch their kids in the pool. And then, of course, we have the little cabanas out here. I felt like this was just a decent thing to fill some space over here. I'm not sure they necessarily fit, but I was originally planning, and I talked a little bit about this, I was originally planning on doing like a pump house and a bar, but someone made the point that maybe the pumps are in the basement of the hotel, so we didn't really need to build that. But yeah, this was gonna be that. Unfortunately, we are not going to do that. I don't know if that's unfortunate, but I do want to point out that this view is spectacular. Great view of the trains going by, an awesome view of the lake. It's gonna be awesome to see the it's going to be awesome to see the train station build over here, and then in the background you get this just amazing view of the park back here. It's really awesome, and eventually, this has been a plan for a very, very long time, but eventually I'd like to have a firework display, and I think we're going to put that over on this island type area. I don't even think it's an island back there, but this will be a really awesome spot to watch the fireworks if you're staying at the hotel. So yes, this is a really nice build. I think I just clicked on all this and it was about 14,000 pieces in this hotel if you take in the hotel, all of the pool structures, and then all of the parking lots. So quite a bit of scenery back here. But yeah, the lazy river, I guess, is the last thing to talk about here. I really like this. It's really unique and interesting I guess in a good way. I hope you guys like it too, and if you do, give me a thumbs up on the video. It helps out the channel. But yeah, this is a really awesome little build, and it's actually a little secluded from everything. So if you're walking through here, it's a little far back. You're not right up to the edge of the lazy river, and I think a lot of times with lazy rivers, there will be a little bit of a buffer zone. You don't want people just like running and jumping into them because you'd probably either hurt yourself or jump on top of somebody. So this is fairly realistic back here, and it's really secluded. We have a lot of tall shrubbery around here, so there are certain areas you'd catch glimpses of people floating around, but for the most part it's fairly secluded, and it's pretty cool. So this is the entrance to it, as you saw the first thing we did, and then of course in my mind you would float this way. But then again, I guess I didn't really think about this, so you might float that way. I really don't know. But yeah, I guess to get out of the lazy river, the thing you have to do is jump off your raft and kind of walk over here. It's really only like 3 feet deep, so shouldn't be much of a problem. Again, if you've never been on a lazy river, go find one, ride them. They're awesome. They're extremely relaxing. And yeah, but all right. So, last thing we have to talk about here is what we're doing in the next episode and moving forward here. So, I've actually thought about this a little bit, and I want to do a flat ride here, and then I think after that, we'd be able to do the cinematics for the roller coaster for the most part. I'm thinking we're going to actually maybe contain the park a little bit more than what we have spaced out here. I'm at the point where this game loads and it takes forever. It doesn't really run great anymore. So I'm thinking some of the original plans that we had might get trimmed back a little bit. I think the border of the park may end up being like right through here. And so we might make some slight adjustments. And then, like I said, after the series is done, if we still want to come back and maybe make an oddball video, we might expand the park a little bit, make something else, and that'll be that. But I think we're honing in a little bit more and consolidating, because I do really want to finish this park for you guys. It's been a very long time, and it would be a major disappointment if we didn't exactly get it done. So that's what's to look forward to. I think the next video will be doing the flat ride in this area, getting this all done, maybe do something a little bit over here as well, get that video put together at some point, and then that will be that. And then of course we'll go forward from there. Still have plans to do at least 1 or 2 more coasters in the park. Those builds take forever, but I think it's going to be worth it. And yeah, I guess that's going to be just about it for this video, guys. I'm sorry it took forever to get out again. Again, thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't like it. If you'd like to support me and make these videos a little bit easier for me to make, go ahead and hit up my Patreon, or of course you can hit that join button below the video and do the YouTube membership that way. And that's gonna be it. I'll see you guys in the next episode back here in Cedar Flags.